what does every girl fundamentally want? They want the guy that they don't deserve, that for some reason liked them. So they want the guy that like girls' values here, guys' values here, she doesn't deserve him, but they happen to have this same esoteric hobby that only they share that brings them together. And so for that reason, that guy who's out of her league is like deeply connected to her and she can trust that he won't cheat on her left, right, and center. The typical guy meets a woman. What's the standard man meets woman frame? Man chasing woman, right? Especially if he approached her, especially if he started with a compliment, that kind of thing, right? That's the standard frame. And as long as you're in the standard frame, based on my definitions, beginner, intermediate, advanced, you will never be more than intermediate because you will always be the one chasing. There's a form of being intermediate that I call high value begging. That's when you're like a really cool high value guy and you're really charming, you're really sophisticated and you have great stories and stuff like that. But fundamentally, you're just complimenting the girl and being very available for her all the time. You're high value begging. It's great, you'll get results that way. High value begging can get you laid, can get you married, etc. But it's still problematic. It still has its issues. And fundamentally, if that is your strategy, you will always be in the provider frame. And so there you will probably have a higher incidence of girls cheating or looking to cheat or girls giving you a harder time in the relationship, that kind of stuff. If you think about a frame around a painting, right? It's something that changes your interpretation of what's inside it to some degree. Right? If you saw a piece of art you thought was really good and it had like a $2 plastic frame around it, you might be less convinced that it's a Picasso than you would have if it had like a nice wood frame that looks like it's been on it, that kind of stuff, right? The frame dictates to some extent how you see it. Also, if you saw it hanging on the wall in an art museum, you would probably view it as being worth more than if you found it at a garage sale, even if it's the same exact painting, right? So the frame and context around that changes your view of it. The frame I want you guys to have is with the girl, she caught your attention, that's why you approached her. Because you can't hide that. If you didn't approach, she caught your attention in some way. That basically means she got the job interview. It does not mean she got the job, right? It's almost like if I'm hiring for my company and I hire a recruiter to go find me well-qualified applicants, and this person wasn't even looking for a job, the recruiter reached out to them, said, would you be interested in interviewing with this company? I reached out to them, they didn't come find me, they show up at the interview, they still have to prove themselves for the job. I don't care that I hired a recruiter to find them. I don't care that they were brought in and they didn't even know my company existed 2 days ago. They still have to prove competence for the job because I have a need, and I'm going to be giving value to fill that need, right? And so therefore, there's a standard that needs to be met, right? So that's the frame I want you to have, right? I'm interested, but I'm not sold. It's hard to hide the fact you're interested. In fact, you shouldn't, right? If you were too disinterested, there would be no point in the conversation, right? That would also be incongruent, right? If you walk up to the girl and act like you're not interested in her at all, that's also incongruent and might get you shit tests. She'll be like, why are you even here? Like, what are we talking about, right? Or oftentimes, very beginner thing to do, you walk up to a girl, you never make it man to woman, she doesn't know what it's about, and she just goes, okay, well, nice to meet you. Not because you were weird or creepy or anything like that, but because she fundamentally doesn't even know what the conversation's about, and so it's less awkward to leave than to stay. So you don't want to be completely devoid of interest. You just want to have enough reservation that she doesn't know she can have you. Okay? Interested but not sold. That's the frame I want you guys to have. And in fact, this is specific to a cold approach, but the idea basically I like to say is that there's three phases to the interaction. Phase number one is I don't like you yet, or I'm not sure if I like you, right? Phase number two is you're winning me over. Phase number three is I like you, but we'll see. I like you, but not this thing, or I like you, but I'm not sure about this. Or I like you, but I'm not sleeping with you yet. I like you, but I'm going to see other women. I like you, but we should take it slow. I like you, but I still care more about my job, and so I'm not going to make time for you all the time. Make sense? Right? Don't like you yet, or I'm unsure about you. You're winning me over. I like you, but. And that's the transition you should be taking the girls through. And when a girl knows that she went through that transition and knows that you did it in a very real way, it feels to her like it feels when she chases a high-value guy and has a crush on a high-value guy. Hey guys, it's Todd, and I have a serious question for you. Are you a guy who just likes watching these videos, or are you really dedicated to getting this part of your life handled? Because if you're the second type of guy, I have big news for you. My brand new live event, the Unfiltered Tour, is coming to a city near you. This is a full-day live event for men who want to master real-world cold approach and build core confidence for life. I'll be going in-depth on game's most powerful topics. Topics such as opening, hooking, sparking attraction, building value, talking to the hottest girls, and building relationships. As well as topics I can simply never address online without massive censorship. This isn't going to be me just standing on stage talking at you. Together, we're going to break down some of my best unfiltered infield footage step by step with no stone left unturned. I've also created new drills and exercises to make sure these skills actually stick before you leave the room. Last but not least, you'll meet local wingmen you can team up with, and we'll wrap up with a live open Q&A where you can ask me literally anything. To see the full tour schedule and to save your seat before they fill up, just click the link below. And if your city isn't listed, let me know in the comments so I know where to go next. This is 8 hours of pure, unfiltered cold approach. If you're ready to kiss your excuses goodbye, sign up at the link below. Do you guys all remember being in middle school or high school and having crushes on girls? You guys remember that? Yeah. Well, girls have crushes on guys too. Even a lot of times, really hot girls, there are guys they have crushes on and they either can't have them because they're in a relationship with someone else or dating some other hot girl, or at least they don't know they can have them, right? And so they do a lot of things to try and get that guy's attention, right? They'll go be in a class with that guy that they're not even interested in the class, right? Or they'll try and make friends with their friends to meet them and be around them. Or this will happen even in nightclubs. Girls will hover around generally near guys. Guys are like, you ever have that where it seems like this girl just seems to be for no reason hovering in your vicinity? Especially a lot of times maybe you did a quick approach early on, you were just warming up or whatever, and then throughout the night she seems to just keep finding her way back to your area and hovering around you. That's the girl trying to chase, right? They have it a little harder because they don't want to be slutty about it, they don't want to be too obvious about it. But girls do chase guys. And when a girl chases a guy and wins him, that feels really good to them. And that feels like they got that high value guy, right? Because what does every girl fundamentally want? They want the guy that they don't deserve, that for some reason liked them, that for some reason they were special for. So they want the guy that girls' values here, guys' values here, she doesn't deserve him, but they happen to have this same esoteric hobby that only they share that brings them together. And so for that reason, that guy who's out of her league is deeply connected to her and she can trust that he won't cheat on her left, right, and center. So how do you get a girl to want to qualify herself to you? And again, this is one of those how do you do game questions. It goes from the absolute least strong, but also least risky to the most strong, most risky. So the least strong, least risky is just tell really good, cool stories and just convey yourself as a high value guy and just hope that she will qualify herself to you. And the reason I said hope is because that's what you're doing. It's not guaranteed at all. It's not a strong push in that direction, but it's a possibility. And if you do it long enough, sooner or later, it's likely to happen. So if you're in a social circle with a girl, right? You say you're in high school with a girl and you're in the same 6 classes every single day, and you from class to class to class are awesome and are competent and telling good jokes and people likes you and you have the answers and you look physically good and all these kind of things, there's a decent chance she's going to get eventually a crush on you from afar and then she'll try and qualify herself to you in some way. Might take a really long time and is not guaranteed by any means, and you're not overtly pushing it, but it will, because of the volume of you're doing this positive thing and the amount of time involved, sooner or later there's a likelihood it'll work, right? And it's extremely safe. At no point are you being try hard or low value or triggering shit tests or being needy in any way. So it's 100% safe, and it probably will work eventually, but it's very low impact. Okay, so that's the safest level 0.01 version of qualifying. Level 10 qualifying would be just the overt ask, the very classic overt mystery method game line from 2002. You're cute, but beauty's common. What do you have going for you besides your looks? I.e., qualify yourself to me now. I'm explicitly asking, and everybody in the world knows I'm asking, right? So that's from super obvious to super unobvious to super obvious, okay? And then there's everything in between. So some of the things in between would be the thing I said to him, which is challenging on something, saying, here's the right answer, now give me your answer, and seeing if they go with the right answer, especially when the right answer might not be what they already believe, or when the right answer is a little bit controversial, it's a little bit of challenge, right? So that's one that you can do, for sure, giving the right answer first. The second is just challenging them on something, right? So, but in an exaggerated way. So, example would be the text messages I showed you, the online messages I was showing at the start of this, where I said, we can be an item or whatever, as long as you promise not to text me 17 times a day and murder every girl that talks to me, right? So these are exaggerations. Very few girls are actually going to text 17 times a day, and very few girls will murder a girl that talks to you. There probably are some in the world that would do that. For the most part, it's an exaggeration, right? And she knows it's an exaggeration. She knows you're being playful. And so because it's an exaggeration, you can do and say a lot. And that's a good ruling game. It's a very, very, very good ruling game. You can get away with a ton if the exaggeration's big enough, right? And in fact, sometimes you can say some things that are way more powerful and way stronger and way more harsh because they're heavily exaggerated. Whereas if you said something that was more real, it wouldn't work as well. Like, I could say to a girl, let's get married, divorced, we'll have 2.2 kids, and I'm gonna leave you like destitute at like 34 with like a house you can't afford and like all your best years behind you, right? Right? I can say that because it's exaggerated, right? Whereas if I was like, I want to take you on a date with a picnic on the park, and I'm gonna buy you the nicest wine or whatever. Now I just look like needy and pathetic, because there's no exaggeration. It's not anywhere near as big of a thing, not as big of a risk, not as forward in any way. But she might think I really mean it, because a lot of guys literally would really mean that, right? And so this very minor thing without exaggeration is a huge risk and might blow you out. This huge thing with exaggeration is like totally safe, right? So that matters a lot. Like how you present it matters a lot, right? So a lot of times when I am qualifying girls, I'll qualify them on stuff like that. I'll qualify them in a big way. I'll be like, are you a grown-up who lives alone, or do you have like 16 roommates and you have like people coming out, like rolling out of the closets in the morning, right? Again, I don't think she actually has 16 roommates, but number one, I want her to try and prove herself that she's like a real grown-up woman, but also maybe I want to find out her logistics and find out if I go back to her place, does she have roommates, right? But I'm finding this out in this funny, exaggerated way rather than this direct way. Another great way to get a girl to qualify is to disqualify her. You probably aren't this. You probably wouldn't be this. This probably wouldn't work out. She's like, no. Like if you say like, you and I wouldn't get along. Well, why? I get along with everybody. Everybody likes me. She's qualifying herself to you. And with everything else, if you're doing all these other things while being high value, that accentuates everything else. Right? If you're being low value and giving a girl a shit test, she's gonna be like, all right, fuck you, low value guy, bye. But if you're being high value and giving her a shit test or disqualifier, now she's gonna want to qualify. So that's kind of a bedrock foundation to everything, being a cool high value guy. But then all these other things can motivate an actual response. It's kind of like if you had it's actually a really good metaphor. If you had a chemical reaction that would happen but just takes a really fucking long time, and then you add a catalyst and it just happens in like 10 seconds, right? Right? It's like the equivalent between, it's the difference between like a bicycle rusting over 10 years or like lighting a match and having a flame. They're both oxidation processes, but one is a lot faster and stronger than the other, right? So maybe that's for the technically minded, there's a metaphor for you guys. You want to start qualifying once she is giving you positive indicators, falling into your frame. Oftentimes if you pass a shit test and she acknowledges the passing of the shit test, right? So you pass a shit test, she's like, yeah, you have a point, or yeah, I guess you're right, something like that. You get an overt positive. That's an indicator you could start qualifying, all right? Just because you can start qualifying doesn't mean you go with the biggest qualifier in the world. Doesn't mean the first time she indicates you can qualify, you go like, so listen, you're cute, but beauty's common. What do you have going for you besides your looks that make me want to like you, right? Like, that's a little strong and heavy-handed right away. Instead, you might try a light qualifier, like, I can't decide if you're really cool or if you're just like really good at faking it. Like, I mean, we can be honest, like you're very charming, but like, is that the real you, or is that just the you put out in like the first 5 minutes, right? Something like that's a little more genuine, a little more a challenge, and it's about a specific thing, not about like, hey, qualify yourself to me, could work. Or for example, you throw out maybe a challenge like something that you like. Me personally, this is just a personal thing. I'm really into sports. I find that people that have done a competitive thing, they're just like more to they've either lived through a really rough time, like and had to like get over it, or they've done a competitive thing. I found those are the most interesting people. So like for me, like soccer was a big part of that or whatever. Did you have a sport or something like that for you? Right? That's a sort of a qualifying statement, right? And it's not something she wants to say no to. She doesn't be like, no, really, I haven't had any challenges or struggles I've accomplished in my life, right? But it seems like just a get to know you question, but it's a challenge and get to know you question where there's clearly a right answer. And so number one, if she cares to give the right answer, and then number two, if she's trying to present her answer in a way to make her look as good as possible to you, like going out of her way, that's a really good sign as well, right? Another good sign is, I'll get to you in a second, if they answer and then change their answer, right? Like they ask them a get to know you question, and they go like, I'm a nurse. Actually, like I'm studying to be a nurse. I'm trying this and this and this and this and this, right? That shows that they care about you having the facts of their life, right? And oftentimes, especially if what they change it to is something a little more impressive, that shows they're trying to impress you. But even if they just change the details or just add more details when they didn't have to, that's a really good sign. So these are signs that they're willing and ready to try and impress you, and they care about how they're being perceived. As soon as they care about how they're being perceived, that's when you can move to that next stage where you start challenging them on that a little bit more. Make sense? Yeah. And then the last phase of the I like you but, that would be once you and she are at a level where you can give each other overt compliments, right? So here's the thing, like a lot of guys think that you can, we talk a lot about not putting a girl on a pedestal, right? And so a lot of guys, they walk up to a stranger, a girl they've never met, they start complimenting her, and they don't know her, they're putting on her pedestal. If you have a girlfriend for like several months, you can give your girlfriend way bigger compliments than you gave to that girl that was a stranger in the first 5 minutes, and you're not putting her on a pedestal because she's earned them, and also because she's given you equivalent or better compliments, right? And so you can be 9 out of 10 into a girl if she's 12 out of 10 into you. Does that make sense? Right? And so what happens is at a certain point, it's clear that you both like each other, and so it's okay for you to be like, I like you, but. It's like, I like you, but you clearly like me a little more. And that's the dynamic you carry into that next phase. But for that, you need the clear indicator that both of you like each other. And this is where a lot of guys fail in their game, is they're having these platonic, boring conversations, and they're not achieving the activation energy for banter, right? So if I go up to you, and I'm using you as an example, I'll use someone else. I'll go up to you, right? And you're a girl, and I talk to you about the weather, and your job, and where you went to school, and where you got your shoes, and I tell you about interesting thing that happened to me, and the taxi driver said something funny today. Have we had a man-to-woman conversation? Yes, no? No, right, exactly. We've just talked about random small talk items, right? There's not the activation energy for you to know that it's man-to-woman, right? And there's not like any tension that I've built. Right? If I did the same exact thing, but at some point I was like, you know what, you're actually kind of cute. Now have we had a man-to-woman conversation?
Not a conversation, but a start.
Yeah, you're good call. Not the whole conversation, but yes, there's been some man-to-woman in the conversation. Very nice. I like the attention to detail. Okay, cool. So that would make it man-to-woman. Would that create a lot of tension?
No build-up.
Yeah, so it might, right? Just being forward does create tension in the sense of nervous tension and nervous energy. And it's like raising the stakes, right? It's like if you're playing a gambling game and all of a sudden you're playing for, instead of like $1 a hand, you're playing for $5 a hand. There's the tension of the raised stakes, right? But the actual play of the game hasn't created tension in the same way. Whereas if I said something that was a little more harsh and more negative to you, like you are either the coolest girl I've met or the most fucking psychotic girl I've ever met. Right? Does that create more tension? Yeah, right? So there's these different elements. Is there man-to-woman presence? And then is there an element of, I call it tension, but we'll call it validation. Is there an element of validation presence? If she's already been validated, she already knows that you like her, there's no need for her to seek your validation, right? If she doesn't know you like her, if she's unsure, or she thinks you don't like her, now there's a reason for her to seek your validation.